Hello, everyone. Welcome to another presentation on how to support a friend. Now, this presentation is geared more towards the grades 9 through 10 range. So let's quickly introduce ourselves before we get into the content today. My name is Alicia Fisher. I'm the Prevention Education Supervisor with the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center. Then we've got Lucas.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lucas Schaefer, and I'm the Male Support and Ally Leader at the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center. Melissa, would you like to go next?
For sure. So Anine, hello, I'm Melissa Gravel. I am the Aboriginal Healthy Babies, Healthy Children worker here at Niche Canada. Miigwech.
Hi everyone, my name is Courtney. I am a student at Fleming College. I'm doing a placement with Kawartha Sexual Assault Center, and I'm here to learn from the three other hosts. So I'm with everyone else as a student today.
Fabulous. Sorry, yeah, fabulous. Okay, let's get going with how to support a friend in this really difficult conversation. So we're going to just go over what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about why supporting a friend is hard, how prevalent harm is, so how much is happening within our world, empathy versus sympathy and those different types of responses, and then going through body language and active listening. And then we work through what things that you can say to someone. Do you know who to talk to? Do you know how to take care of yourself and support others? And then wrapping things up with a conclusion. So a little bit about who we are. So at the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center, we are located in Peterborough. We serve the Peterborough, City of Kawartha Lakes, Haliburton, and Northumberland regions. And if you're wanting more information about other sexual assault centers outside of those regions, you can head on over to Ontario Coalition of Rape Crisis Centers website, and there you can get connected to centers that are in your region. So we support everyone who is impacted by sexual and gender-based violence, all genders. So the services that we provide are individual and group counseling. Group counseling can be anything from journaling workshops to expressive arts to storytelling, all the way through to psychoeducational programs about how trauma impacts our brain. And we offer that for young people and survivors, as well as their supporters, so their friends, family members, and intimate partners. We also offer a Building Internal Resilience Through Horses program, which is for female identified youth between 12 and 18 years of age. We also offer advocacy and accompaniment. So if you're needing support, if you're accessing court services, police services, or hospital services, we can provide that support, as well as peer support. So offering more of that counseling, but not from a counselor. So it's much more of a deeper, kind of more peer connection and having someone to talk to. We also do public education for youth and adults all across our community, which is kind of like what we're doing now. And then we also offer a males program that Lucas can speak more to.
Thanks so much, Alicia. So a part of the public education piece that we have at Kawartha Sexual Assault Center is the mending program. And what we talk about in the mending program is ways of engaging men in learning about and ending gender-based violence. And we do that by talking about what gender-based violence is and looking at different instances of gender-based violence in our society in Canada. We also talk about what sexual violence is. We talk about what informs and teaches us what being a man really is. Asking ourselves how that affects us and how it affects how we treat other people. And then we learn about consent and healthy relationships and ways of becoming an active intervener in situations of harm, how to support and make sure that you're prioritizing everyone's safety. At the end of the program, we teach you ways of delivering the program and teaching everyone in your life, as well as continuing your own learning through facilitation. If any of those topics are interesting to you, we have a wonderful webinar coming up this week on Friday about healthy masculinity. So tune in for that.
Great. And we also offer 3 lines of 24/7 crisis support at the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center, being text, phone, and through our website as an online chat system. Now we'll head over to our partnering agency.
All right. So, like I said before, I'm from Niche Kwandida Anishinaabe Quebec Services Circle. So, we're a non-for-profit agency located here in Peterborough, and we work with Native women and their families who are abused, at risk of being abused, or currently being abused. So, we do healing work through traditional healing methods and traditional healing counseling, and we also incorporate mainstream and Western healing practices as well. So, some of the different programs that we have at Niche Kwandida are my program, Healthy Babies, Healthy Children. We have transitional housing support worker. We've got short-term and long-term counseling. We've also got a crisis line where you can call throughout the week, and we will support you during your difficult time. And we also have a youth and transition worker who is a phenomenal worker. She's got the passion and the drive, and she does presentations in the school as well. So her name is Shannon if you're looking for support that way. So yeah, that's just about Niche Kwandida. Miigwech.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so let's get into, first and foremost, why it is hard to support our friends, especially when they're talking to us about difficult topics. And so one of the main things that comes to a lot of people's mind is that they don't want to say the wrong thing, or they don't want to make it worse. And so there's this apprehension and this fear about, I want to support someone, I want to be there for someone, but I don't want to escalate a situation. I don't want to say something that I think would be okay, but then have my friend get really upset at that. And so how do we understand our intentions and how our intentions have impact? Sometimes we are working through our own guilts, our own judgments, and maybe our own discomforts around the situation. Maybe something that your friend experienced is something that you were part of, and that maybe you weren't able to get involved, and you weren't able to stop the situation from escalating, and then your friend ends up getting harmed, whether that's emotionally or physically. And then so sometimes we even have our own judgments around situations, right? And that's really pervasive in this kind of society that has a lot of victim blaming. Well, why were you doing this? Why were you doing that? Why weren't you doing this? And why weren't you doing that? And so there's influences from our greater society that impacts our brains and how we think about people who have experienced these kinds of incidents. And ultimately as well, solutions should not be your focus, even though it tends to be, right? We want to make things better. We want to help people, and we want people to get better. But sometimes providing solutions may be from your own mindset instead of what your friend actually needs. Melissa, did you have anything to add to that?
And I think, yeah, like solutions are not your focus is really important in not pushing your beliefs or your opinions onto the situation. Cause like we said, you can sometimes do more harm than good. So being very, cautious and mindful that the person is in a very vulnerable state, and that they can be easily triggered by something that you may say that you may think may be helping them, but in reality it's your own bias and your own opinion. So being able to put your feelings and your judgments and everything aside and be there for that person, really truly honestly be there for them and support them.
Mm-hmm. Courtney, was there anything to add on your end?
I think you guys covered everything for this one. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Lucas?
I was going to say that, going off of what Melissa was talking about, when we're worried about our own guilt and judgments kind of like clouding our ability to be a supportive friend for someone, it's important to remember who you are to this person, right? Sometimes we have this inclination to want to be the figured outer, like an investigator or a detective, like figuring out what exactly happened, right? But just focus on who you are, right? If you're a friend to that person, support them. That's your role. That's your place. And you can do that by not letting your own guilt and judgments cloud that role.
I think reflection is really important as well, to taking the time to reflect back on the situation or the scenario afterwards and seeing kind of what maybe you could have done differently, what you learned from the situation, and being able to address that as well.
Certainly. So when we look at how impactful these types of incidents are, they really, when we look at trauma, it's unfortunate, but it's reality that many youth and children across our country experience a lot of different forms of trauma. And some of the stats that we have are that 24% of children and youth experience parental separation or divorce. 20% of children and youth experience a mental illness. 29% of children and youth experience some form of physical abuse, and 21% of children and youth experience some form of sexual abuse. And just to kind of break down that number, to look at how sexual violence and youth are connected, there was a recent study by the CBC that revealed that 9% of males said that they were sexually assaulted by another student. 15% of females said that they were sexually assaulted by another student. So these are really important things to keep in mind, that not only other forms of trauma, but sexual trauma is something that is quite frequent, unfortunately. So that's almost 1 in 10 and 3 in 20. If you're in a class of 30 people and you have 10 males and 20 females, that's a pretty high percentage of people that have experienced this. And when we look at Trent University, which is a university in Peterborough, this was a student voice survey that came out in 2018, and they found that almost 70% experienced some form of sexual harassment. Almost 82% witnessed sexual harassment or violence, and that 30.6% reported non-consensual sex, so experiencing rape and sexual assault. And so it's really important when we look at these numbers to understand that this is something that is not just happening to a one-off person. This is something that is happening to a lot of people. And the last stat here, 27% of children and youth witness their parents struggle with substance abuse. And so these numbers range between 1 in 4, 1 in 5, 1 in 3. And so it's really important to recognize that, yes, this is really, these are really scary numbers. But also when we start breaking down certain cultures, when we start looking at certain identity factors like gender and ethnicity, we start to recognize that these problems are a lot higher and a lot more common for certain genders or certain cultural experiences. Maybe Melissa, you can speak to that.
Absolutely. So I know, like, being Anishinaabe, like Ojibwe here in Mississauga territory, one thing that's really prevalent in our culture is intergenerational trauma. So intergenerational trauma is where something may have happened to one of your family members, whether it be your parents, your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles. For example, one really big intergenerational trauma impact is residential school. So the removal of children from their home and essentially turning their ways of knowing and being into another way. So this is a really big thing in our culture, and it affects a lot of us, whether it happened to us in our immediate family or whether it happened to our friends. We all feel that pain because it's something that's, that's happened to us, and it really has impacted us. And with some of the stuff with substance abuse, then that's where we sometimes see those similarities or those experiences that may have caused those types of behaviors. So it's really important to understand and realize what people what different cultures may face differently than others, but also remembering that we all have a story, and we are all, although we're different, we're all very much alike as well.
Thank you so much. Lucas or Courtney, do you have anything to add?
I have something to add, but if Courtney, you have something, you can go first.
Go ahead, Lucas. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so just emphasizing something that Alicia was talking about, right? When we look at these stats and think 1 in 5 or 1 in 4, 1 in 3, or even more, right? If we haven't experienced these experiences, or in the case of the student voice survey in 2018, like sexual violence, you can think of 3 people or 2 people or 1 person that out of the 4 or 3 or 2 when we look at these stats, right? Like almost 70%. That's almost 3/5, right? You can think of 3 people and know that they statistically are likely to have experienced sexual harassment, right? So just to keep those numbers in mind, that's one way of interpreting them and really taking them to heart.
Certainly, thank you so much. So, we've been talking about what happens when a friend discloses to you, but what really is disclosure? Maybe Courtney, you can read through this and talk a little bit about disclosure.
Sure. So a disclosure can be anything that a person comes to you and tells you. So you can disclose, anything from gender to experience, there's wide range. Anything that somebody comes to you and tells you, that's a disclosure. So the actual definition is the action of making new or secret information known. So when someone is disclosing to you, know that they're doing so because they trust you. So if somebody comes to you and tells you about an experience, that's probably because they trust you. They feel comfortable around you to tell you this information that they may not have told anyone, or they may have only told a select few people. So to really be there with that person and to just establish that trust, make sure that, that trust can continue to be grown, that they're believed, that, they came to the right person, just really listen to them.
Certainly. Awesome. Thank you so much. And speaking of listening and how we respond, we're going to watch a quick video about responding with empathy. And so this is by Brene Brown. And in this video, we talk about, or she talks about rather, the differences between responding with sympathy and responding with empathy. And if you're watching the replay, maybe you can pause this right now and have a discussion with your class about what they think the answers is, or the answers are, I guess. All right, so let's get to it. Here we go.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
All right. What a beautiful video. And maybe if you are with your students, you can have a discussion right now about what now the differences are between sympathy and empathy, and what are some key components of an empathetic response. Well, one of the things, one of the quotes that really stood out in this is that rarely can a response make someone better. What makes someone better is connection, right? Knowing that someone is there and is listening to you means so much more than them trying to figure out a solution to a problem in your life. And so what are some ways that we can actively listen to a situation? How can we practice active listening skills to show that we really are paying attention? And maybe Lucas can go through these with us.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Alicia. So the first thing that we have to do is concentrate. It's really hard in our digital age where we have a lot of things that are trying to compete for our attention. But giving someone the time and space and showing them that you're listening and that you're intently trying to be there is super important, right? giving them time, giving them your time. Another point is understanding, right? Sometimes when we hear something the first time, we don't get the full effect, right? So something that we can do to make sure that we're understanding when someone's sharing with us is ask them clarifying questions. Is this what you meant? Or when you said this, do you mean this? And allow them to correct you, right? It gives them a second chance to say what they're really trying to get across. And we'll also show them that you're really listening. You're interested in making sure that you understand what they're trying to say. Did someone want to speak for a respond?
Sure. So responding, you can respond with empathy when you're actively listening. When you are sitting there and somebody's telling you something and you're trying to come up with an answer in your head, you're probably not listening to what they're actually saying. Your mind is busy thinking of a response. So if you sit there and, you're actively listening, you can respond with some empathy. In the video, they say, you know what, that's a lot of information and I don't know really how to respond to you right now, but know that I believe you and I want to be here for you. That's a better answer than, the at least. So really just responding with that empathy that we learned from Brené's video. Remember. So I don't know if anybody else can agree, but when somebody comes up to me that I've talked to only a number of times and they ask me about something that we briefly talked about in a past conversation, I always think, wow, like that person really cared about that conversation. And that means a lot, that I'm going to trust them more than if I'm standing there repeating the same story that I've told them 3 times now. So to try, and it's hard, especially with everything going on. We have lots in our mind, but try to pick out a few pieces of what people are saying to you that you can remember and that you can attach to that person so that you have something to follow up with them on the next time you see them. Or yeah.
Definitely. The quote on here says, "We are not listening for data that we need in order to get something done, but deeply listening so that someone feels understood." And there's a couple keys to active listening that a lot of was discussed and kind of what is required with active listening. So getting rid of distractions, getting rid of your phone, turning off the TV, looking for those verbal and vocal cues, right? So if someone is not really knowing what to say, they're looking around, asking them, hey, do you want to talk about something? Paying attention to their vocal cues, suspending judgment, having empathy, using active listening body language. Listen, stop talking. Practicing mindfulness, whether that's for yourself or for the friend. And so we're going to be talking about a couple different mindfulness strategies here, but also emotional awareness. Like, how is your friend feeling right now? Are they feeling as if they can talk about this, or are they hysterically crying and just need someone to be there and help calm them down, right? So it's really important to pay attention to those emotions. And the last one that Lucas mentioned is clarify or paraphrase with questions, right? So asking things like, so how would you feel about that? What happened next? Can be very important clarifying questions. And Melissa, do you have anything to add for active listening?
I just think really the nonverbal communication is really important. Like, facing them or sitting beside them. Some people, if it's your friend, they feel more comfortable if you sit beside them, just to feel that you're there, and looking them in the eye when they're talking to you, and maybe giving them some head nods if you're when you're listening. And it's really important to remember that they're in a very vulnerable state when they're disclosing something to you. So just being there for them and being a friend, whether it's just sitting there with them, that's what they need.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so now we've learned about responding with empathy, active listening skills, but how do we actually support a disclosure? What are some things that you can actually say when someone is talking to you about something that has happened? Lucas, you can start us off.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alicia. Yeah, so the first thing that was talked about in the Brené Brown video, as well as in discussion afterwards, is like thanking them for doing the vulnerable thing and the tough thing of reaching out and disclosing something for the first time. recognizing that vulnerability and thanking them will go miles. Like, that's really meaningful. Like, I'm sorry this has happened to you. And what this phrase does is recognize the harm that's been done and recognize and give them your, like, this is a very, like, special way of giving your judgment that's very affirming, right? Because it's saying what has happened to you is worth apologizing for. I'm sorry that this has happened to you. Right?
And it's something that has happened to them, not something that they asked for or not something that they deserve. This is something that has happened to them.
Thank you, Alicia.
Of course.
And then the third one, saying, I believe you, right? A lot of the times when we experience harms, especially if they are traumatic, right? We can be thrown into states where we are just trying to recollect what just happened. And what that can look like is kind of just verbalizing everything that's coming to your mind, right? So listening to that, right? And recognizing that when sometimes there's inconsistencies or things that might have been said differently than previous times, that's that's just the natural process of processing that information in that event that's just happened. And you can show that you are affirming that and acknowledging that by saying, I believe you. You're in a very vulnerable space when you're sharing this experience with someone, right? And the last thing you'd want to do as a supportive friend is to harm them even further after this has happened. Asking, how can I help you right now, right? I think Alicia spoke earlier to, like, have everyone having ideas of, like, what help looks like, and, like, oh, I know exactly what you need. It's this, right? But when we give someone the opportunity to provide ways of supporting them, that's, like, going to be the most meaningful support that they're going to be able to receive, because it's them asking people directly what they want, right? We can offer suggestions, right? Hey, like, do you want to just, like, sit with me? I can do this, this, and this, right? Showing them what you can do, but not telling them what you can do, or like closing them off, right? Giving them the option to choose.
Yeah, a lot of people think that, when someone is talking to them, when someone's talking to you about, something that's happened, let's just say someone has harmed them. So let's just say it was like a coach, for example, the first response of, oh, why don't you just quit the team? Can be really traumatic, because we're not really listening to what our friend is saying, is that our friend has been harmed and they're looking for support right now. And so, what can I get you anything, or it's a lot more beneficial than, oh, you should quit. And then finally, you're not alone, and we can connect you with people who can help. So as you said, knowing about those numbers and knowing about local resources can be really important to expand who you can talk to and provide support to. So when we're looking for support, these are things that you can practice yourself or even with your friend, but these are really heavy topics. And so there's a lot of different forms of self-care that we can think about, so that when we're hearing these messages about these traumas or experiences that someone's happened, sometimes that can be really aggravating or heightening for us, right? So making sure that we're practicing our own self-care, whether that's dancing, watching Netflix, eating your favorite food, listening to music, doing crafts, hanging out with your pets. There's a lot of different ways that you can learn about self-care, and it's really important to figure out what works for you. And there's a lot of different areas of support, whether it's within the school, talking to our teachers, our principals, counselors, talking to our families, maybe even looking towards doctors, mental health practitioners, clinicians, nurses, for medical help and support if needed, right? And if you're talking with your friend and you're not exactly sure what to say, knowing of some resources can be really important. So there's Kids Help Phone. So you can make that call together, put them on speakerphone. This is a support that is offered for people ages 5 to 20 years of age. There's also Good to Talk, which is for ages 17 to 25, and that's a phone line as well. There's various youth and LGBTQ lines. Talk for Healing is an Indigenous resource right here in Canada. They have a texting feature, an online web chat feature, as well as the phone. And Melissa, I know you have one other one that you always like to offer.
Yeah, for sure. So getting connected, whether you're an urban Indigenous person, or if you're residing within a reserve, getting connected with some of the elders and the knowledge keepers in the community, and just being able to connect that way, I think is really important, because the culture is very grounding when you're going through difficult times. So being able to know how to reach out to those people and know kind of who to contact when you're in those times.
Certainly. So let's wrap up, and Courtney can talk about what are some key points that we learned throughout this presentation.
Sure. So when we started off this presentation, we started talking about how it can be really difficult to be that person that someone comes to for support. So recognizing that if you're, having a difficult time dealing with it, that's normal, that it's not anything that you're doing wrong. It can be difficult. We also talked about practicing empathy and what it looked like to be an active listener. So those key concepts of putting away distractions, being there with the person in the moment, eye contact, body language, things like that, responding well, listening, believing your friend. So don't make assumptions. Don't, fill in pieces of their story. This is something that they're coming to you with. So it's important to listen and give all the power to the person speaking. They should be the ones making the next steps in their lives, because they were the ones that had something taken away from them. Asking what they need right now, rather than telling them what they need. Again, giving them the power to make the decisions is really important. And then we followed up with some self-care for yourself. So maybe after this presentation, going through and thinking of things that you actually enjoy doing, things that when you do, you feel positive. And those are some things that you can practice daily basis, and that that you have in your toolkit for when something difficult happens to you, that these are things that you can rely on to make yourself feel better. And then the last thing that we just went through were some resources. So there's lots of resources in Peterborough and the surrounding areas for you, whether you're a survivor or whether you're somebody helping a survivor.
Great, thank you. And if you're an educator accessing this, we always appreciate if you could fill out the survey that's either attached in this video or attached in the initial email that was sent out. And then finally, the supports that are offered with the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center, those 24/7 crisis supports, where we have a texting line, a phone line, as well as online supports. And if you're wanting to get access to those numbers, if you're wanting to learn more about the different services that the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center provides, you can head on over to our website, kawarthasexualassaultcenter.com. And Melissa, if you want to take it away with the youth group that Nietzsche is running.
For sure. So my coworker Shannon, she does the youth in transition. She has been keeping the youth connected via Zoom, doing different youth groups. I think it's bi-weekly. So she's actually created a new itinerary for a new youth group, which is traditional teachings, self-care, the grandfather teachings, incorporating the therapeutic arts in the sense of doing beading and shakers. So if you're interested, her name is Shannon O'Connor. Her email's there, and also her phone number. So feel free to reach out. It's completely free and it's accessible via Zoom.
Amazing. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. And thank you all the facilitators for your knowledge and bringing that into the space.
Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye.